Hello tea drinkers, beautiful subscribers and voluptuous women, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this video where I help you guys decide whether or not Le Mans Ultimate is worth getting, especially since its new DLC just dropped yesterday for £9.99, which gets you a track and some hypercars. You can also spend $39.99 to get a full season pass, so when other tracks and other cars drop, you will be able to play them as well. What are you watching right now, you might ask yourself? You're watching a Lamborghini hypercar against AI on the new Imola DLC track. And I think it looks really quite nice. You know, first point with LMU is, I think the track models are absolutely fantastic. The onboard camera settings are nice. The graphics in general are really great. Really consistent visual quality to it. In my view, it absolutely smashes the visuals of iRacing. It absolutely smashes the visuals of ACC because it's got proper anti-aliasing. It's not blurry, and it actually runs better than ACC. It looks great. Add to that the fact that it has really nice camera smoothing, similar to the iRacing camera smoothing or Magi FR's smooth head motion. You get a really nice visual experience playing this, and with the tracks you get the latest versions of the tracks, and that's quite a nice thing to have available to you. If this was iRacing, the track would cost you £4 billion and a remortgaging of your house to drive the track, but it's not iRacing, it's LMU, so you can pay £10 and you get a track and two cars. But then again, if it was AC, you could get this track and 4 billion cars for free. So it's hard to really understand the economics of sim racing. But for the price alone, just the visuals of the track and the quality of the cars and everything, really quite good. You'll also notice here that the AI is actually pretty decent to race against in this game. If you're a fan of rFactor 2, this continues the rFactor 2 AI heritage. rFactor 2's AI was pretty great as well. LMU seemed to have polished the AI more from when I last played it. And it shows, because you can have quite fun racing, though there are still some weird things with the AI. Like if you do multi-class racing, which you probably are if you're doing this type of racing in Le Mans Ultimate, if you qualify very slowly, you'll find yourself behind the entire grid. They don't seem to grid cars up by class properly, or at least they didn't to me. Hopefully that's something they can fix. But putting that to one side, you can have a nice, at least with my testing, like a nice 20-25 minute race, and the AI is nice and fun to drive against. At 100%, you can actually put it past 100%. They're super zoomy quick, so unless you're like an esports driver, you've probably got a good range there to have something quite decent to race against. If you're a bit of a noob, you can turn them down and they will be slower. Now, they do still have the AI problem of being very slow through tight chicanes, and a bit slow at the very start of the race, and a bit slow overtaking through traffic, but that's a problem with all games AI. Generally speaking, on the grand scheme of AI though, it's really quite impressive what they've done with this, and I think for people that want a single player game with modern tracks and maybe GTE and a mixture of cars, LMDH, GTE, LMP2, then this actually offers quite a nice AI single player experience, though there's not like a proper exciting career mode or anything. It's just you create a race and you race it sort of lark. But I have to say that's pretty good, quite different from many other simulators at this point in time. Now, you've noticed we've been too positive, so I need to say the elephant in the room. I need to point the elephant in the room out here, and that elephant is the FFB elephant. I had to mention it, guys. Despite this game having great physics, actually the tire modelling, the handling is really quite nice, really intuitive, very forgiving. Some ways quite similar to ACC, but I'd say a little bit more dynamic at the limit. A little bit more dynamic in terms of how the warm tyres and the cold tyres affect things. Suspension's better in this than ACC. The physics I think seem pretty decent to me, like up there. Despite all that, unfortunately, the force feedback in this game is really pretty crap. Now, a lot of people will think it's fine because it's got good vibrations for the track, good curbing feel, Really nice, decisive self-aligning for when the rear steps out. So it is easy to drive, but if you want to focus on those more important, detailed force feedback for the actual grip at the limit, and knowing how hard you can brake, and knowing how hard you can turn the steering, and knowing how close you are to the limit, there's just no dynamic range in this. As soon as you get to the limit, the force feedback basically flat lines. It's useless. Anybody that actually understands how to drive from force feedback, if you're a passionate Assetto Corsa player or Automobilista 1 player, and you appreciate what a direct drive wheel gets you with dynamic force feedback that's detailed, if you really appreciate that value of a direct drive wheel, then this game spits in your face, kicks you in the balls, and then defecates on you and goes, how dare you want to get value out of your force feedback wheel? We're just going to give you really brutal, obnoxious force feedback that most sim racers will think is fine. So hopefully that's something that they improve in the future. But if you're used to detailed force feedback for the limit, this is dull, like ACC's dull. And as a result of that as well, combined with there having no real sound for the tyres, or no obvious sound for tyre slip and tyre slip build-up, it's very easy to accidentally lock up, and it's very hard to know how much to push through corners before getting too much slip. So not only does it have the lacking force feedback, it also lacks that tyre scrub sound. So in iRacing, for example, you can use the tyre scrub sound as a reference, which is a pretty crappy way of feeling where the limit is, but at least it's something. So that's the force feedback. I put it in this video, now you know. Now you can disagree in the comments, but you'd be wrong, so deal with it. Now we have to talk about the sound. I think this game's actually got really quite nice sound. It's not obnoxious. The different vehicles sound great. Starting up on the LMDH car from electric battery-powered dishwasher mode to full-on petrol mode. It's like experiencing the transition of motorsport in reverse. You go from miserable electronic despair, too much technology, to raw combustion engine excitement. But at least you get the engine turning on, so it's nice. That's a nice little gimmick. You only hear that when you drive out of the pit, so it's kind of pointless really, but it's part of these cars. That's nice. But generally speaking, the sounds of the cars is really great. Feels like you're in a vehicle. I will say though, I think the RPMs don't seem to line up fully with the actual RPMs of the actual car. Like the sound of the RPMs, there's something slightly off, seems to me. I accidentally downshift into neutral from first because it's like I can't hear the RPMs properly at the lower range, and it doesn't quite feel like I can intuitively gauge what RPM I'm at for shifting and stuff. I have to look at the shift gauge more. That's a weird problem I have in LMU. I don't have it in any other simulator. Even sims where I don't like the sounds. I don't like the audio in iRacing particularly. It doesn't sound particularly realistic or immersive, but in iRacing the sound correlates really clearly to the RPM, so it's a really good reference for when you need to shift, or if you're at the correct RPM for where you're on the track, to then know if you're at pace or not. Same with like in AC1, ACC, AMS1, you know, you can really tell where you are in the rev limit from the RPM sound. But for some reason LMU just feels a bit off and disconnected to me. And I'm using glorious Sennheiser headphones, and I'm not deaf, so I don't know why more people don't call that out. I don't know why they're not noticing it. Maybe they're not as sensitive to audio and force feedback as me or something, I don't know. But it's definitely something a bit weird going on there. But it's immersive and generally pleasant, so it's probably good enough for most people. Now, the big thing with LMU as well is really, and I think this is the USP, the unique selling point. That's what USP means. I thought I'd say that just in case you didn't know. The online racing, every hour or so, there's a race, puts everyone into it. So you load up LMU, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get a race with splits, because it'll put everyone into different splits depending on the skill. You do the race, and then you gain rating, safety rating and ranking, and you can actually get your rating up to then do more advanced events and stuff. The crucial thing though is that framework of you being able to load a game up and you can jump into a race and they've got fixed setup races there, so you don't have to fiddle around with stuff. You can just jump in and have a race. That framework is absolutely superb. Very similar to what what you get with iRacing, but with LMU you basically get that for a lot cheaper. And with LMU you get that with much better netcode than iRacing. Cars don't like bounce off each other insanely, so they can be more aggressive driving. And you get that for much cheaper than something like iRacing. Even if you bought the full, let's say you spent £30 on the game and then you spent £40 on all the DLCs for Season Pass, if you're happy driving GTE, LMP2, LMDH cars, you could get the enjoyment that you get from iRacing, but with this game for a lot cheaper. The physics are also better in this, I'd say, than iRacing for the most part. This is much more deep in the physics behaviours. There seems to be a lot more going on. It's a lot more precise. The tyre behaviour is a lot more realistic in this. So, that's more for those of you that are sort of thinking about pricing and stuff. At the end of the day, let's be honest, iRacing's got more people in it. It's got more cars, more things to pick from. It's its own game, and that's something you can enjoy as well. I play all the simulators because I really am a loser with absolutely no life at all. But, you can get a lot of fun out of this game, and a lot of that sort of iRacing-like fun, thanks to its online structure, which should just be the benchmark for all racing simulators. So it's quite nice that LMU have done what I think should be the benchmark. So, all told, the update is really nice. I think the DLC, the cars that you get in it, and the track looks fantastic, and I don't think the price is bad. A lot of people are annoyed that it's an early access game and now has DLC, but my thing to say to them is, when you're buying anything, doesn't matter what it is, what you need to do is you ask yourself the question, is what I'm buying worth what I'm paying for it right now? If it is, then you should be happy. Don't ever buy anything based off some promised future improvement or some promised thing that will then supposedly make what you bought worthwhile. Great life lesson this. Only spend money on something that you're happy on spending the money on right now, that delivers the value straight away, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised if things get better and offer more value. For example, don't become a channel member of this channel, because it will never offer value and will only lead to more depression. But that's great advice. And you need to think of early access as words. They don't mean anything. So is the thing that you're buying in early access good? Fine, doesn't matter if it's early access or not. Is this DLC good? And if it is great. Right, so that's that to one side. Now, who will this game actually appeal to, and where do I think it really fits in? I can see this really appealing to people that are quite big fans of ACC, for example, but want something different from ACC, and maybe want to do something like ACC, but with the multi-class and the WEC World Endurance Championship framework. I can see this appealing to them. Also, the jumping online racing is a lot more convenient than doing LFM and other systems. I can see quite a few people that are general sim racers quite liking this title. If you're a fan of generally racing online and you just like the format of race cars and you're more into the racy side of things, so quite a few iRacers might enjoy this. Though this simulator is obviously not the EPing Central that iRacing is, but it does have a little bit of EPing in this, just mixed in there, just the tip of EPing in this title, so you can get that EPing enjoyment from this. I would say, if you're more of an Assetto Corsa general sim game player, you like BMMG, you like cruising, you like driving road cars, you like the general driving experience, then this sim probably isn't for you. As I say, the force feedback's super dull, and it's quite dry and much more focused around the hyper repetitive, racing component of it. So you're going to get motor enjoyment from this, specifically because you like the race cars that are in it, you specifically like the tracks in it, and you really like that sort of focused online racing component. And you can also overlook the abysmal force feedback and the sort of dull driving that you get as a result of that. Driving's not always dull with this though, it's not entirely dull. I'd say this is less dull than ACC, but I think this is actually more dull to drive, even than iRacing in some ways, even though this is more realistic. But it depends how much you care about force feedback and some other aspects of handling. So it's hard to pin down exactly who will like this. What I would definitely say is they've polished this up to a level now where I think if you buy it, you're probably going to have quite a nice time with it, at least. And it's well worth getting it on Steam, and you can always do a refund after a few hours. Not really enough time to properly test it, but you could then get the gist of things to then decide if it's worth keeping or not. And I don't think it's a ludicrous price for what it is as well, so no big loss if you just buy the base game. Also, if you do just buy the base game, you can still do a lot of the racing online because you don't need all the DLC cars. You just won't be able to access the track. So the base game lets you experience everything, and then the DLC will let you do the events specific to those tracks. There is the question of how that will divide things up in the future, but that's for another video. So all in all, great job by the LMU developers. Please sort the force feedback out. And I personally will be playing more Assetto Corsa and iRacing. iRacing for me, my EP has shrunk and it needs to be grown. And I also like the voice chat. This needs voice chat in it because that's where 90% of the humour comes from in sim racing. Sim racing, a hobby devoid of any humour. So any humour we can get is good. But thanks for watching this video, guys. That is a quick rundown of LMU. Let me know if you found it useful in the comment section. And till the next one, happy tea drinking, take care, and goodbye.